My beloved child, before the calendar turns and the world rushes forward, heaven pauses and asks you a question. This is not a question spoken to crowds. This is not a message meant for everyone. This is a divine interruption, placed gently yet urgently in your path as the new year begins. Many will scroll past this moment, distracted by noise, deadlines, and resolutions that carry no fire. But you were guided here because something unseen has already been moving around your life. I, Archangel Michael, step forward now, not with fear, not with force, but with truth wrapped in mercy. Heaven is asking, are you ready to move when I open the door? Not next month, not later this year, but when it opens, because this door does not remain open forever. There is a reason this message reached you now. The timing is not random. God's timing never is. While you were busy surviving the past year, heaven was watching how you endured. While you questioned delays, God was measuring your faith. And while you wondered if anything would truly change, a door was quietly being prepared, one that does not open twice in the same way. Hear this clearly. This new year does not begin with answers. It begins with a question. And how you respond in your spirit will determine what unfolds next. Some of you feel it already, a pressure you cannot explain, a restlessness that does not come from anxiety but from anticipation. You sense that something is about to shift, yet you cannot name it. This is not imagination. This is alignment. The old season has expired, even if its shadows still linger. And heaven is asking whether you will step forward when comfort is no longer an option. Do not confuse God's silence with absence. Do not mistake delay for denial. And do not assume the door will wait until you feel ready. I see many of you standing between what was and what could be. You have learned lessons the hard way. You have lost things you prayed would last. You have carried disappointment quietly, smiling when others asked how you were doing. And still, you are here. That alone tells heaven something powerful about you. But listen closely now, because this is where most people miss it. The door God is preparing does not open with noise. It does not announce itself with signs that impress the world. It opens with discernment, and only those who are spiritually awake recognize it. That is why this message matters. That is why it feels heavier than usual. And that is why something inside you told you not to leave early. The question heaven is asking is not, do you want blessings? Everyone says yes to that. The question is, will you move when the timing makes no sense? God's timing often contradicts human logic. The door may open before you feel strong enough. It may open while things around you are still unresolved. It may open when others doubt you, or when your resources look insufficient. But heaven does not wait for perfect conditions. It responds to obedient hearts. Some of you are being called to let go of an identity that once protected you but now limits you. Others are being asked to forgive what you never received an apology for. And some are being positioned to step into responsibility you did not ask for, yet were trained for through hardship. Do not underestimate what this year carries. This is not a year of wandering. This is not a year of repeating cycles. This is a year of divine alignment, but alignment requires movement. I, Archangel Michael, have been assigned to stand guard at thresholds. And I tell you this with authority. Once this door opens, hesitation will cost more than action. Fear will speak loudly. Old voices will resurface. Comfort will tempt you to delay. But heaven will not force you through. Free will is sacred, even when it breaks God's heart. That is why this message reached you before the year fully unfolds. Heaven is giving you awareness before opportunity. instruction before expansion, and confirmation before the door appears. Most people will look back months from now and say, "I didn't see it coming." But you will remember this moment. You will remember that you were warned. You were prepared. You were invited to listen deeply. Do not rush to understand everything. This message is not meant to be solved. It is meant to be received. Let it settle in your spirit. Let it challenge you. Let it stir questions you have been avoiding. Because the God who orders time is watching how you respond now. And as this new year begins, heaven waits, not impatiently but intentionally, for your answer. If this is stirring something inside you, remain open. What comes next will clarify what this moment has activated. My chosen one, as this message continues to unfold, I need you to understand something very important. Heaven is not rushing you, but it is watching you closely. The new year has crossed a spiritual threshold, and with it comes a shift that many will feel but few will interpret correctly. What you are sensing right now is not pressure from the world. It is a summons from above. I, Archangel Michael, am speaking to the part of you that already knows change is inevitable, even if your mind is still catching up. There are moments when God's timing feels slow, and then there are moments when it suddenly accelerates. This is one of those acceleration points. The reason heaven asked you a question before giving you clarity is because your response reveals your readiness. God does not reveal doors to those who only want comfort. He reveals them to those willing to move in faith. And faith, my beloved, is not passive. Faith listens. Faith responds. Faith prepares before proof arrives. Some of you have been praying for signs, not realizing that this message itself is one. Others have been asking God to speak more clearly, yet when He does, it disrupts your routine, and that disruption feels uncomfortable. Let me be clear, discomfort is not always a warning. Sometimes, it is confirmation that you are no longer meant to stay where you are. This year carries a divine contradiction. You will be asked to trust before you see results. You will be asked to release control before stability appears. And you will be asked to walk forward while parts of your past still whisper behind you. This is not punishment. This is preparation. I see many of you standing at the edge of something unfamiliar. You keep asking yourself, why now? Because you assumed God would wait until everything made sense. But heaven rarely operates on human logic. God's timing is precise, not convenient. And when the door opens, it opens because the season is right, not because you feel fearless. Listen carefully. Delay has already done its work in you. It taught you endurance. It taught you discernment. It taught you how to survive without clarity. Now comes a different lesson: how to move with obedience. The enemy thrives on hesitation. Not rebellion, not disbelief, hesitation. Because hesitation sounds reasonable. It disguises itself as wisdom, caution, or waiting for a better moment. But heaven knows the difference between patience and avoidance. And the question heaven is asking this year is whether you will trust God enough to act when the timing feels fragile. Some of you are still holding on to versions of yourself that God already asked you to outgrow. Old labels, old fears, old expectations placed on you by people who never saw your full calling. The door ahead cannot be entered carrying yesterday's weight. That is why this message feels heavy, not to burden you, but to alert you. I, Archangel Michael, am assigned to protect transitions. And I tell you now, what you are stepping into requires courage, not perfection. You are not late. You are not behind. You are positioned exactly where you need to be, but positioning alone is not movement. This is where many people scroll away, When the message stops comforting and starts confronting, they leave. But you stayed because your spirit recognizes truth even when it challenges you. It tells me something about you. If this message is speaking to you, let your action reflect it. Engage with this moment. Like this message so it can reach others who need to hear it before their door opens. Share it with someone who feels stuck between seasons. Leave a comment declaring that you are ready to move with God's timing, not your own. And if you feel led, subscribe and stay connected, because what is unfolding here is not a one-time word, but an ongoing assignment. This year is not about doing more. It is about responding faster. When God nudges, do not negotiate. When clarity comes, do not delay. And when the door appears, do not wait for permission from people who are not meant to walk through it with you. I sense that some of you are worried about what you might lose if you step forward. But heaven is far more concerned with what you will lose if you stay where you are. Stagnation drains purpose. Obedience restores it. Before this message moves deeper, I need you to stay present. What is coming next will connect the timing, the door, and the question heaven is asking in a way that will shift how you see this entire year. Hold on. This is where it starts to make sense. Beloved soul, now the message deepens, and I ask you to listen not just with your ears, but with your inner knowing. There are moments in time when heaven leans closer, when the veil feels thinner, and when what is spoken carries weight beyond words. This is one of those moments. I, Archangel Michael, am not bringing you comfort alone. I am bringing you clarity. And clarity often arrives with a holy seriousness. The question heaven is asking you is not casual. It is not rhetorical. It is not symbolic. It is deeply personal. God is asking whether you are willing to recognize the door when it appears, even if it does not look like what you imagined. Many miss divine doors because they expect them to look dramatic, obvious, or perfect. But God often hides destiny inside ordinary moments, simple decisions, and quiet instructions. Some of you are waiting for everything to line up before you move. You want certainty, confirmation, and reassurance from people around you. But hear this truth: heaven confirms first in the Spirit, not through circumstances. If you wait for the world to agree with God's plan for your life, you may wait forever. There is a reason this message feels like a pause button on your life. God is slowing you down not to stop you, but to sharpen your awareness. The door ahead is connected to timing, not talent. You already have what you need to walk through it. What you are being tested on now is discernment. I see some of you replaying past failures in your mind, asking yourself if you are truly ready for what God has promised. You are measuring the future by the pain of the past. But heaven does not consult your wounds before assigning your calling. Redemption does not require your confidence. It requires your obedience. This new year carries a spiritual fork in the road. One path feels familiar, predictable, and safe. The other feels uncertain, stretching, and risky. But the safe path leads to repetition, while the uncertain path leads to alignment. God is not asking you to run blindly. He is asking you to trust that He sees what you cannot. I, Archangel Michael, have been sent to strengthen those who feel weak at the moment of decision. You are not lacking faith. You are standing at the edge of transformation. That trembling you feel is not fear. It is the awareness that your life is about to shift. Some of you will be called to speak when you once stayed silent. Others will be asked to step back where you once fought to be seen. And some will be led to close a door you begged God to keep open. This is not loss. This is alignment. God removes what no longer fits the future He is building for you. Do not let urgency turn into anxiety. Heaven's timing is exact. The door that opens once does not open in haste, but it does require response. When the moment comes, overthinking will be the enemy of obedience. That is why God is preparing you now, before the choice presents itself. Many will hear messages like this and feel inspired for a moment, then return to old habits. But you are still here because your spirit knows this is more than inspiration. This is instruction, and instruction demands response. I sense that some of you are carrying quiet guilt for times you ignored God's nudges before. You are afraid of missing it again. Let me release you from that burden. God is not reminding you of the past to shame you. He is reminding you now to redeem the present. Mercy has already covered what was missed. Focus on what is being revealed now. This year is not asking you to be perfect. It is asking you to be present. Present enough to hear. Present enough to move. Present enough to trust that heaven is not confused about you, even when you feel uncertain about yourself. As this message settles into your heart, I want you to understand something sacred. You are not watching this by accident. You are participating in a divine moment of awareness. And awareness is the first step toward obedience. Now receive this activation with intention. Type "I receive the call" in the comments if this message is resonating with your spirit. Blessing code 444 has just been released over your life. This word is not meant to stop with you. It is meant to reach others who are standing at their own unseen doors, unaware that heaven is calling their name. When you sow into this mission through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal, with the link placed in the description, you are placing oil into the lamp that keeps this light burning. I hear the Lord say, as you release, I will release clarity over your household. This is not charity. This is obedience in motion. I am speaking to you directly now. Your seed becomes a voice for those who have not yet heard. Do not delay what heaven has stirred. Sow, and watch God open rivers where there were walls. I bless every giver now. May your obedience unlock doors that only heaven could design. My beloved one, now that your spirit has been awakened to the question heaven is asking, it is time to understand what stands in the way of your answer. Many think the greatest obstacle to God's timing is fear, but fear is only the surface. Beneath it lies something more subtle and more powerful: attachment. Attachment to what you know. Attachment to what once were. Attachment to who you had to be to survive. I, Archangel Michael, speak now to expose what must be seen so you are not confused when the moment of movement arrives. God's timing often collides with emotional history. You are not just stepping into a new season. You are stepping out of agreements you made in past seasons. Agreements with Tao. Agreements with limitation. Agreements with people's expectations. These agreements were not sinful. They were survival strategies. But what once protected you can no longer lead you. Some of you have been asking God to change your circumstances, while heaven has been waiting for you to release your grip. You want the door to open, but you are still standing with one foot in yesterday. This is why the transition feels uncomfortable. Your spirit is moving forward, but your emotions are trying to negotiate with the past. Hear this clearly. God will not drag you through the door. He honors your will too much for that. He will open it, illuminate it, and confirm it, but stepping through requires surrender. And surrender is not passive. It is an active decision to trust God more than your memory of pain. I see many of you wrestling internally. On the outside, you appear calm, faithful, and patient. But inside, there is a debate happening every day. One voice says, "What if this failed?" Another says, "What if this finally works?" Attention is not weakness. It is the sound of growth. I, Archangel Michael, have stood beside many at the edge of destiny, and I tell you this truth. The moment before breakthrough often feels like instability. Not because God is uncertain, but because He is removing your dependence on what you can control. Control gives the illusion of safety, but it limits faith. And this season requires faith that moves. Some of you are afraid that if you let go, everything will fall apart. But heaven says the opposite is true. What is held too tightly begins to suffocate. God is asking you to loosen your grip so He can rearrange what you could never organize on your own. This year will test your obedience in quiet ways. Not through dramatic trials, but through small instructions, subtle nudges, gentle redirections. A door may open that seems smaller than expected. An opportunity may appear that feels beneath your vision. Do not despise the form of the door. Destiny is not always wrapped in grandeur. Many miss God's timing because they are waiting for certainty instead of confirmation. Certainty belongs to the future. Confirmation belongs to the present. And confirmation often comes as peace that does not match logic. If you feel a calm resolve even while your mind asks questions, that is heaven speaking. I see some of you still asking God for permission to move, not realizing He has already answered. The silence you feel is not indecision from heaven. It is an invitation for you to step forward. God speaks once, then waits to see if you trust Him enough to act. Let me address another hidden barrier: comparison. You have watched others walk through doors you prayed for. You have wondered why their timing came sooner. But heaven does not operate on competition. God customizes timing because He customizes calling. What would have overwhelmed you last year will bless you this year. Delay was not denial, it was development. This door you are approaching is not just about opportunity. It is about identity. You cannot walk through it as the same person who survived the old season. That version of you was strong, but this next season requires depth. It requires humility. It requires the courage to be led rather than to lead. I, Archangel Michael, am reminding you now that heaven is not testing your worth. Your worth was settled long ago. What is being tested is your willingness to trust God with outcomes you cannot predict. And trust is proven not by words but by movement. Do not rush this moment, but do not resist it either. Let the awareness settle. Let the attachment surface. Let the questions rise. None of these disqualify you. They prepare you. What comes next will reveal how God confirms His timing in ways you may not expect. Stay attentive. The patterns you are about to notice are not coincidence. They are instruction. Beloved one, as this message moves forward, your awareness is being sharpened for a reason. God does not reveal timing without also revealing patterns. What you are about to understand now is how heaven confirms a door before it ever opens visibly. Many people miss this because they are looking for dramatic signs, but God often speaks through repetition, alignment, and quiet insistence. I, Archangel Michael, am guiding you to notice what has already been happening around you. You may have sensed certain themes repeating in your life lately. Conversations you did not plan to have. Messages that seem to echo the same truth from different sources. Opportunities that appear, disappear, and then return again. This is not coincidence. This is confirmation. Heaven repeats what is important, not because God is uncertain, but because humans are often distracted. Some of you have been feeling an unusual pull toward something you once dismissed, a calling you postponed, a responsibility you avoided, or a path you assumed was closed. God is resurfacing it now because you are finally ready to see it without fear. Timing changes perception. What once felt overwhelming may now feel possible, even if it still feels challenging. I see many of you questioning your intuition. You ask yourself whether it is God speaking or just your own thoughts. Let me bring clarity. When God speaks, His voice brings conviction without condemnation. It brings direction without confusion. If what you are sensing pushes you toward growth, integrity, and surrender, it is not random. Heaven does not lead you toward chaos. This year, God is teaching you to recognize alignment. Alignment feels like effort without resistance. You still have to move, but something inside you agrees with the direction, even when your mind has questions. That inner agreement is not emotion. It is spiritual recognition. Some of you have noticed that certain doors are no longer responding to your effort. You push, you try, you plan, and nothing moves. This is not failure. This is protection. God is preventing you from investing energy where there is no future. At the same time, other doors seem to open with less struggle than before. Pay attention to that contrast. Heaven uses ease as well as resistance to guide you. I, Archangel Michael, want you to understand that God's timing is rarely about speed. It is about order. When things fall into place without manipulation, it is because heaven is arranging what you could never coordinate alone. Forced doors drain you. Aligned doors sustain you. Here is another pattern many of you are experiencing. Emotional detachment from things you once clung to. You still cared, but the urgency is gone. The anxiety has softened. This is not indifference. This is readiness. God loosens emotional dependence so you can walk forward without being pulled backward. Some of you are worried that if you step through this door, you will disappoint people who depend on the old version of you. But hear this truth. You are not called to remain the same to keep others comfortable. Growth will always challenge familiar dynamics. That does not make it selfish. It makes it necessary. This year will require discernment in relationships. Not everyone who walked with you in survival is meant to walk with you in purpose. This does not mean conflict must happen. Sometimes distance is simply alignment doing its work. God removes access gently when hearts are willing to listen. I see some of you struggling with the idea of responsibility. You sense that the door ahead carries weight, leadership, or visibility. You are not afraid of failure as much as you are afraid of being seen. But heaven does not elevate to expose. It elevates to serve. What God places in your hands is not meant to crush you. It is meant to flow through you. Let me say this clearly. You are not being rushed, but you are being readied. The patterns around you are increasing because the moment is approaching. God always prepares the inner world before changing the outer one. That is why this message feels layered, serious, and persistent. Do not dismiss the small confirmations. Do not ignore the repeated nudges. Do not downplay the peace that follows certain decisions. These are not random emotions. They are signals. I, Archangel Michael, stand with you now to remind you that heaven is deeply involved in this transition. You are not navigating blindly. You are being guided deliberately. The more you surrender the need to control outcomes, the clearer the path becomes. What comes next will reveal how this door begins to take form in the natural world. It may not look like what you expected, but it will carry the signature of God's timing, order, peace, and purpose working together. Stay attentive. The next shift will require courage, but it will also bring confirmation that you are not walking alone. My beloved child, now we arrive at a place where heaven begins to test movement, not just understanding. Many people receive insight, but few allow that insight to shape their decisions. This is the separation point. I, Archangel Michael, speak now to steady your spirit, because what God is doing in this phase is subtle, yet decisive. The door is not fully visible yet, but the pressure to choose is increasing, and that is intentional. There are seasons when God speaks loudly, and there are seasons when He watches quietly. This is a watching season, not because heaven is distant, but because heaven wants to see what you do with what you already know. Revelation without response fades, but revelation acted upon becomes authority. Some of you have noticed that your tolerance for distraction has decreased. Things that once entertained you now feel empty. Conversations that once filled time now feel draining. This is not judgment. It is refinement. God is narrowing your focus because divided attention weakens discernment. You cannot recognize the right door if you are constantly looking in every direction. I see many of you wrestling with inner resistance. Not resistance to God, but resistance to change. Change requires you to redefine yourself, and that can feel threatening even when the change is good. You are asking, who will I be on the other side of this door? And heaven answers, more aligned than you have ever been. This year is not about adding more to your life. It is about subtracting what no longer belongs. Simplification precedes acceleration. But removes clutter before releasing clarity. That is why certain plans are dissolving, certain expectations are collapsing, and certain attachments feel heavier than they used to. They are out of season. I, Archangel Michael, want you to understand something important. When God's timing approaches, emotional noise increases. Doubt grows louder. Old fears resurface. This is not regression. This is exposure. What rises now is what must be faced so it does not follow you through the door. Some of you are tempted to go back to what feels familiar just to quiet the discomfort. But familiarity is not safety. Familiarity is often just habit wearing a mask. The discomfort you feel now is not danger. It is expansion. This is also the phase where obedience becomes practical. God may ask you to make small changes that feel insignificant. Adjust your schedule. Reorder priorities. Have a conversation you have been avoiding. Release a commitment that no longer aligns. These are not random instructions. They are alignment checkpoints. I see some of you delaying action because you are waiting for perfect clarity. But clarity often follows movement. God illuminates the next step, not the entire staircase. If He showed you everything at once, fear would overwhelm faith. Trust is built one step at a time. Let me speak directly to your concern about making mistakes. You fear choosing wrong and missing the door. But hear this truth: God is more invested in your obedience than in your perfection. A sincere step in faith is safer than standing still in fear. Heaven redirects the moving, not the frozen. This is why engagement matters in moments like this. When you like this message, when you share it, when you speak in the comments what God is stirring in you, you are not just interacting with content. You are activating intention. You are declaring that you are present, receptive, and willing. And when you subscribe and stay connected, you are choosing to remain in an environment where discernment is sharpened, not dulled. I sense that some of you are watching quietly, receiving deeply, but hesitating to respond outwardly. Let this be a moment where inner agreement meets outer action. Faith is not silent. It moves, speaks, and aligns. This year will reward those who respond, not just those who reflect. God is not asking for loud declarations, but for consistent obedience. Small yeses accumulate into open doors. I, Archangel Michael, stand with you as a witness to this transition. Heaven is not pressuring you, but it is inviting you to participate. What you choose to do in this window matters more than you realize. You not drift through this moment. Anchor yourself in it. What unfolds next will connect the internal preparation with external opportunity in a way that will surprise you. Hold on. You will want to stay with this, because what comes next is where many finally recognize the door they have been praying for. My beloved one, now we move into a phase where heaven begins to reveal the shape of what has been forming unseen. This is the stage where discernment becomes sharper, and where your spirit starts recognizing truth faster than your mind can explain it. I, Archangel Michael, speak now to help you understand what it feels like when God's timing is no longer approaching, but arriving. There is a quiet clarity settling over many of you. It does not feel loud or dramatic. It feels steady. You are no longer asking the same frantic questions you once asked. Instead of "Why is this happening to me?" you are beginning to ask, "What is being asked of me?" That shift alone tells heaven that you are maturing in alignment. Some of you have noticed that your reactions are changing. Things that once triggered anxiety now receive a pause. Situations that once pulled you into emotional spirals now meet a calmer response. This is not because the situation improved, but because you did. God has been strengthening your inner world so the outer world no longer controls you. I see many of you standing in a strange space between anticipation and peace. You sense movement, yet you are not frantic. You feel expectation, yet you are not restless. This is one of the clearest signs that God's timing is near. When heaven prepares to move, it settles the spirit first. Let me tell you something important. When God is about to open a door, distractions intensify. Not because the enemy is winning, but because focus becomes crucial. Small things will try to pull your attention away. Old habits will try to resurface. Voices from the past may reappear unexpectedly. This is not coincidence. It is resistance sent to decision. Do not panic when this happens. Resistance does not mean you are doing something wrong. It often means you are close. The closer you get to alignment, the more important it becomes to guard your attention. What you entertain now shapes how clearly you see the door when it opens. I, Archangel Michael, am reminding you that not every opportunity is an open door. Some are tests of discernment. God allows options to appear so you learn to choose alignment over excitement. The right door will carry peace, even if it carries challenge. The wrong door will carry urgency, pressure, and confusion. Some of you are learning to say no without guilt. You are realizing that availability does not equal obedience. Just because you can do something does not mean you are meant to. This is wisdom growing in you. God is teaching you to protect your calling, not expose it to everything that asks for your energy. There is also a purification happening in your motives. You are beginning to want God's will more than personal validation. You are less concerned with being noticed and more concerned with being aligned. This shift is quiet, but it is powerful. Heaven trusts those whose motives have been refined. I see some of you revisiting old dreams, but with new eyes. Dreams that once felt ego-driven now feel service-oriented. Ideas that once centered on self now include others. This is not accidental. God redeems vision by maturing the heart behind it. This year will require you to listen more than you speak. Not because your voice lacks value, but because discernment grows in silence. When you slow down, patterns become visible. When you stop explaining yourself to everyone, God's direction becomes clearer. Some of you are feeling a strange emotional detachment from outcomes. You still care, but you are no longer desperate. This is trust for me. Desperation pushes. Trust follows. Heaven responds more quickly to trust than to force. Let me address the concern many of you are carrying quietly, the fear of disappointment. You are afraid that if you hope again, you might be let down again. But God is not asking you to hope blindly. He is asking you to hope with discernment. Hope anchored in Him does not collapse when circumstances shake. I, Archangel Michael, speak now to reassure you that heaven has not miscalculated your capacity. You are not being led toward something that will break you. You are being led toward something that will stretch you, and stretching is how strength is revealed. As the days move forward, you may notice moments of confirmation appearing unexpectedly. A phrase you hear twice. A thought that returns with clarity. A sense of peace after a difficult decision. These are not random. They are heaven's way of saying, you are seeing correctly. Do not rush to label the door. Do not force it into a category. God's doors often open in ways that feel organic, not dramatic. They blend into your life before you realize how significant they are. That is why awareness matters more than excitement. Stay grounded. Stay attentive. Stay willing. What comes next will address the weight you are meant to carry on the other side of the door, not as a burden, but as responsibility shaped by purpose. And when you hear it, you will understand why heaven took so much care preparing you for this moment. Beloved one, now we arrive at a sacred turning point in this message, because heaven is no longer only preparing you to recognize the door, it is preparing you to carry what lies beyond it. Many people desire open doors, but few consider the responsibility that follows. I, Archangel Michael, speak now to bring balance to your understanding, so you are not surprised by the weight that accompanies alignment. When God opens a door that opens only once, it is never just for personal comfort. It is connected to assignment. Purpose always carries responsibility, and responsibility requires maturity. That is why this season have been so intentional, so slow, and at times, so demanding. Heaven was not delaying you, heaven was deepening you. Some of you have sensed an increase in spiritual awareness recently. You are more sensitive to atmospheres, more aware of motives, more discerning about words spoken around you. This is not imagination. God is sharpening your perception because what you are stepping into requires wisdom, not reaction. You cannot carry purpose if you are easily swayed by emotion. I see many of you realizing that the door ahead will require consistency, not just courage. It is one thing to step forward boldly. It is another thing to remain faithful when the excitement fades. God is looking for stewards, not visitors. The door that opens once leads into a season that must be maintained with discipline. This is where many misunderstand God's timing. They think the miracle is the opening of the door, but heaven knows the greater miracle is who you become after you walk through it. That is why character has been such a focus in your preparation. God protects His assignments by refining the people who carry them. I, Archangel Michael, want you to hear this clearly. The weight you are being prepared for is not meant to crush you. It is meant to anchor you. Lightweight faith drifts easily. Grounded faith stands firm. The pressure you have felt was not to test your endurance alone, but to strengthen your roots. Some of you are beginning to understand that the door ahead will change how others see you. Expectations will shift. Boundaries will be tested. Your yes will matter more, and your no will carry more consequence. This is not something to fear. It is something to steward wisely. Heaven is also preparing you for seasons where obedience may feel lonely. Not because God leaves, but because fewer people can walk the path you are being led on. This is why your dependence on human validation has been gently dismantled. You cannot carry divine responsibility while constantly seeking approval. There is a seriousness settling in your spirit, but it is not heaviness. It is clarity. You are beginning to understand that this new year is not about proving yourself, but about positioning yourself. God is not impressed by performance. He is pleased by faithfulness. I see some of you asking quietly, "Am I really ready for this?" Let me answer you with authority. Readiness does not mean feeling fearless. It means being willing. God does not wait for confidence to appear. He builds confidence through obedience. Every step you take in alignment strengthens what you doubted in yourself. This door, when it opens, will not remove all challenges, but it will align you with grace to face them. Misaligned seasons drain you. Aligned seasons sustain you, even when they demand effort. That is the difference many are about to experience this year. I, Archangel Michael, stand as a witness that heaven has measured this season carefully. Nothing has been rushed. Nothing has been overlooked. You have been prepared quietly, thoroughly, and intentionally. And now, heaven is watching how you respond to the awareness you have received. Before this message transitions further, receive this activation with intention and faith. Type "I am ready to carry IT" in the comments if your spirit agrees with this word. Blessing code 888 has just been released over your obedience and strength. This message is not meant to remain contained within you. It is meant to reach others who are standing at doors they do not yet recognize. When you release your support through Super Thanks, through membership, or through PayPal using the link in the description, you are sowing into the spreading of God's timing to lives that are still waiting for clarity. I hear the Lord say, "Those who fund my voice will never lack direction." I am speaking to you personally now. Your giving becomes a key that unlocks understanding for others. Do not delay what heaven is prompting. Release your seed with faith, and watch God cause your obedience to echo back to you in multiplied alignment. I bless every supporter now. May the door you walk through be guarded, sustained, and fruitful beyond expectation. Beloved one, now that the weight and responsibility of what lies beyond the door has been revealed, heaven begins to prepare you for endurance. Many can step into a new season, but fewer know how to remain steady once they arrive. I, Archangel Michael, speak now to anchor your spirit, because what God opens must be sustained with wisdom, patience, and continued obedience. There is a common misunderstanding about divine doors. People assume that once the door opens, resistance ends. But in truth, resistance often changes form. It no longer tries to stop you from entering. It tries to distract you once you are inside. That is why discernment does not end at obedience. It deepens after it. Some of you are beginning to sense that the season ahead will require rhythm, not urgency. You will not be asked to rush, impress, or overextend. God is not calling you into burnout. He is calling you into stewardship. And stewardship requires balance. Heaven sustains what is tended, not what is forced. I see many of you learning to pace yourself differently. You are no longer driven by fear of missing out. You are becoming guided by peace. This shift is critical, because frantic movement often leads to misalignment. God's timing flows. It does not chase. There will be moments ahead where you are tempted to revert to old patterns under pressure. When expectations rise, when responsibility increases, the mind often looks for familiar coping mechanisms. But heaven is equipping you with new ones. Awareness, prayerful pause, and wise counsel will be more effective than old habits ever were. I, Archangel Michael, want you to understand that endurance is not about toughness alone. It is about consistency and alignment. You do not need to prove yourself every day. You need to remain faithful every day. God values longevity more than intensity. Some of you will notice that your definition of success is changing. What once excited you may no longer satisfy you. What once felt like achievement may now feel empty without purpose. This is not loss of ambition. It is refinement of vision. God is teaching you to measure progress by alignment, not applause. There is also a deepening of accountability coming. Not in a burdensome way, but in a refining way. Your words will carry more weight. Your choices will influence others more than before. This is why heaven hath been shaping your integrity. Influence without integrity becomes dangerous, but influence grounded in humility becomes powerful. I see some of you realizing that rest will be a spiritual discipline in the season ahead. Rest is not withdrawal, it is wisdom. God often speaks most clearly when the soul is still. Do not neglect stillness in pursuit of productivity. But God sustains that not require constant strain. You may also experience moments of quiet testing. Situation where shortcuts appear. Opportunities where compromise is subtle. These moments are not traps. They are confirmations. Heaven is watching whether you value alignment more than convenience. Every choice reinforces who you are becoming. I, Archangel Michael, remind you that you are not expected to walk this season alone. God places support around assignments, even when it feels like a small circle. Pay attention to who brings clarity, peace, and truth into your life. These are not random connections. They are provision. Some of you will need to learn to receive help without guilt. An abandon served you in survival season, but entered abandon sustained purpose season. Allow others to contribute without feeling diminished. God uses community to preserve calling. This year will teach you how to remain grounded in gratitude. Gratitude protects the heart from entitlement and discouragement. When challenges arise, gratitude will remind you why you said yes in the first place. When victories come, gratitude will keep you humble. I sense that some of you are concerned about maintaining spiritual sensitivity as life becomes fuller. Let me reassure you, God does not remove His presence when responsibility increases. He multiplies grace. But you must remain attentive. Make space for Him intentionally. The door that opens once is not meant to overwhelm you. It is meant to mature you. Every step beyond it will reveal new layers of who God is shaping you to be. Do not rush that process. Do not resist it either. As this message moves forward, what remains is to understand how heaven brings this entire journey to completion, not with pressure, but with promise. What comes next will connect the question heaven asked at the beginning with the peace that follows obedience. And when you hear it, you will know that the door was never the end. It was the beginning. My beloved child, now heaven turns your attention to something many overlook when stepping into divine timing: vigilance. Not the vigilance of fear, but the vigilance of awareness. I, Archangel Michael, speak now because the season you are entering will reward those who remain spiritually awake, not just spiritually excited. Enthusiasm may open the journey, but discernment sustains it. When God's timing activates, life does not suddenly become quiet or simple. In fact, it often becomes fuller. More decisions, more voices, more demands on your time and energy. This is why heaven has been training you to listen inwardly instead of reacting outwardly. The louder the world becomes, the more valuable inner stillness is. Some of you are beginning to realize that discernment is not only about recognizing what is wrong, it is about choosing what is best. Many options ahead will not be sinful or harmful, they will simply be distracting. And distraction is one of the most effective ways alignment slowly drifts. God is teaching you to ask not only, Is this allowed? But is this assigned? I see many of you sensing a shift in how you handle pressure. You are learning that urgency does not always mean importance. People may rush you. Circumstances may demand immediate answers. But heaven's pace is deliberate. When you pause to listen before responding, you protect the alignment God has established. This year will test your ability to remain focused without becoming rigid. Flexibility guided by discernment is a strength, not a weakness. God may redirect you mid-step. He may adjust plans you were confident in. This is not instability. This is responsiveness. The more closely you listen, the less force is required. I, Archangel Michael, want to speak to the moments when fatigue tries to convince you that slowing down means falling behind. That voice is not from heaven. God does not measure progress by exhaustion. He measures it by obedience. Resting when he says rest is as powerful as moving when he says move. Some of you are stepping into roles where visibility increases. Visibility amplifies both support and criticism. This is why your identity must remain anchored in God, not in feedback. Praise can distract just as much and doubt if it becomes your compass. Heaven alone must remain your reference point. You may notice that discernment now requires daily attention. Yesterday's clarity does not always cover today's decision. This is not because God changes his mind, but because obedience is relational. God invites you to walk with him, not ahead of him. Daily listening keeps alignment fresh. There will be moments ahead where you feel tempted to explain yourself to everyone. Resist that urge. Not every decision needs justification. Peace does not require consensus. When God confirms something in your spirit, you are not obligated to convince those who do not understand your assignment. I see some of you learning to guard your words more carefully. Silence will become a tool, not a weakness. Speaking less does not mean disengaging. It means discerning when words are necessary. Heaven values restraint because restraint preserves authority. Let me also speak to your digital and emotional environment. What you consume shapes what you discern. God may prompt you to limit certain inputs, not as restriction, but as protection. A clear channel receives clear direction. This is why staying connected here matters. When you like this message, when you comment, when you share it with others who need alignment, you are choosing to remain engaged with what sharpens you instead of what dulls you. When you subscribe and stay part of this space, you are not just following a channel. You are staying in an atmosphere that reinforces discernment and divine timing. Some of you feel this message is different. It is not just speaking to you. It is training you. That is intentional. What lies ahead requires awareness that does not fade after inspiration passes. This is formation, not motivation. I sense that a few of you are on the edge of distraction right now. Your mind already jumping to what comes next, to other tasks, other thoughts. Gently pull your attention back. What is being spoken here is foundational. Hold on just a little longer, because what is about to be revealed will bring everything together in a way that clarifies why heaven has been so intentional with you. Do not rush away from this moment. The next shift will explain how God seals his timing with peace, the kind of peace that confirms you did not imagine any of this. Stay with it. This is where the full picture begins to emerge. My beloved one, now heaven draws you into the final stage before fulfillment. Not the end, but the sealing. This is the phase where God confirms his timing not through signs and signals, but through peace that settles deeper than emotion. I, Archangel Michael, speak now because many misunderstand this stage and mistake calm for inactivity. But in truth, this is where alignment becomes unshakable. You may notice that your striving has softened. The need to prove, to push, to constantly evaluate whether you are doing enough begins to fade. This is not complacency. This is trust maturing. When God seals a season, He removes the frantic edge and replaces it with assurance. You still move, but you move differently, with intention instead of anxiety. Some of you are surprised by how normal life feels right now. You expected fireworks, dramatic changes, or overwhelming emotion. But heaven often seals destiny quietly. God does not need spectacle to confirm His will. He needs consent. And when consent is given, peace follows. I see many of you reflecting on how far you have come without realizing it. Things that once terrified you now feel manageable. Decisions that once paralyzed you now come with clarity. This is not because circumstances became easier, but because your discernment became stronger. Growth often reveals itself in hindsight. The sealing phase is also where God invites you to release the final traces of self-doubt. Not because doubt was sinful, but because it is no longer necessary. You have been trained. You have been prepared. You have been positioned. Now heaven wants you to stand without constantly checking whether you are allowed to be where you are. I, Archangel Michael, want you to understand that peace is one of God's strongest confirmations. Chaos cannot counterfeit it. Pressure cannot sustain it. Only alignment produces it. If you feel peace even while facing uncertainty, that is heaven's signature on your path. Some of you are learning to trust your spiritual senses again. You are no longer dismissing intuition as imagination. You are recognizing when God nudges you gently rather than loudly. This sensitivity is not fragile. It is refined, protected. There may still be moments where old fears attempt to resurface, especially when you are tired. But notice how quickly they pass now. They no longer take root. That is because fear no longer has authority where peace has been established. This is also the stage where gratitude deepens. You are no longer just thankful for outcomes. You are thankful for the process. Even the delays begin to make sense. Even the closed doors reveal their purpose. Gratitude anchors you so you do not romanticize the past or rush the future. I see some of you releasing expectations of how this year should look. You are allowing God to surprise you. His flexibility keeps you aligned. Rigid expectations often limit what heaven wants to do. Surrender expands it. Heaven is also teaching you how to stand firm without becoming defensive. Confidence without arrogance. Humility without insecurity. This balance is rare, and it is powerful. It allows you to carry responsibility without being consumed by it. I, Archangel Michael, remind you that sealing does not mean completion. It means readiness. The foundation has been laid. The awareness has been sharpened. The peace has settled. Now, when the door fully reveals itself, you will recognize it not by excitement alone, but by resonance. Something in you will simply know. Some of you are already experiencing this resonance in small ways. A decision that feels right without explanation. A boundary that feels necessary without guilt. A direction that feels steady without pressure. These are confirmations, not coincidences. As this message moves toward its final release, understand this: heaven is not asking you another question now. The question was asked at the beginning. What comes next is the response heaven gives to your willingness, your patience, and your obedience. Remain grounded. Remain attentive. Remain open. The final words that follow will not introduce something new. They will reveal what has been forming all along, the purpose behind the question, the door, and the timing. And when you hear it, you will understand why heaven asked you to stay until the very end. My beloved child, now we arrive at the moment heaven has been guiding you toward from the very beginning. Not an ending, but a revelation. The question heaven asked at the start of this journey was never meant to confuse you. It was meant to awaken you. And now, with clarity formed, peace established, and discernment sharpened, heaven answers its own question through your life. The door that may only open once was never just about opportunity. It was about alignment. God was not testing your patience, He was preparing your posture. Timing was not withheld to make you wait. It was protected so you could walk through without breaking under its weight. Everything you have felt, questioned, wrestled with, and grown through has been intentional. You may have noticed something powerful within yourself now. You are no longer desperate for signs. You are no longer begging for clarity. There is a quiet confidence forming, not arrogance, not certainty about outcomes, but assurance about direction. This is the mark of readiness. When heaven sees this posture, it releases responsibility without fear. I, Archangel Michael, speak this truth over you now. The door ahead is responding to who you have become, not just to what you desire. God opens doors to character before He opens them to capability. That is why this journey focused so deeply on your inner world. What you carry internally determines what you can steward externally. Some of you are realizing that the door has already begun opening in subtle ways. A conversation shifted, a burden lifted, a decision felt settled, a path became clearer without force. These are not partial blessings, they are confirmations. God rarely opens everything at once. He reveals enough to move, then meets you in obedience. This new year will not unfold the way the past ones did. You will not be chasing direction. You will be walking in it. You will not be reacting to life. You will be responding with wisdom. That does not mean every day will be easy, but it does mean every step will be anchored. I see many of you stepping into a deeper sense of purpose, not louder, not more visible, but more grounded. You will speak less, but your words will carry weight. You will move slower, but your steps will be intentional. This is maturity in motion. Let me release this final truth over you. God's timing always answers heaven's question with peace. If peace has settled in you, even quietly, then heaven has received your answer. And heaven does not ignore obedience. He honors it. You stayed. You listened. You allowed this message to reach you fully when many would have scrolled past. That alone speaks volumes in the spirit. Awareness is rare. Willingness is powerful. And obedience unlocks what cannot be forced. Now seal this moment with intention. Type "I walk through the door" in the comments if you receive this word with faith. Blessing code 1212 is now activated over your life, marking completion, alignment, and divine timing. This word was not meant to end with you. It was meant to move through you. When you support this mission through super thanks, through membership, or through PayPal using the link in the description, you are sowing into open doors for souls who are still waiting to hear heaven's question. I hear the Lord say, "Those who respond to my timing will never lack provision." I am speaking to you personally now. Your giving is not a donation. It is obedience aligned with purpose. Do not hesitate. Act while the door is open. As you release, heaven releases back to you wisdom for decisions, peace in transitions, and favor that cannot be explained. I bless every supporter now. May your seed return as multiplied clarity, protection, and fruitfulness in this new season.